It is 7:01 p.m., and I'm calling the February 24th, 2026 meeting of the Hamilton Planning Board to order. In the event any of our members may be on Zoom, I will take a roll call, but before that, I will note that this meeting is being recorded by HWCAM. So when I call your name, would you please indicate that you're present? Pat Norton,
Present.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, present.
Bill Wheaton,
Bill Wheaton, present.
Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, present.
and Marnie Crouch, present. And I note for the record that Emil Dahlquist will not be attending. He advised me that he is a little under the weather, and I'm unaware of the other members, but we do have a quorum, so we'll get started. So the first item on our agenda is the review of minutes. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, I note for the record that Darcy advised me that she identified a typo on the third paragraph from the end of the minutes
January.
for January 13th. There was a period that should be eliminated, and that's a very minor typo. And then for the minutes of February 3rd, I had several very minor stylistic changes to those minutes, and other than that, I'm satisfied with the minutes. Does anyone have any changes that they would like to make? In that event, I will entertain a motion to approve the 4 sets of minutes that are on our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Could you identify what
Yes,
minutes they are?
yes, we were going to be approving November 4th, 2025, December 2nd, 2025, January 13th, 2026, and February 3rd, 2026.
And I have a second from
Second.
you. So are any members appearing via Zoom? No. So all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved, and Mark, I will give you the sets of minutes that have the changes. Okay. So if no one objects, I would like to take the Board of Health discussion out of order and go straight to the land use applications of Myopia. I don't think they will detain us too long, but I want to talk to the Chair of the Board of Health, David Smith, and his associate, Greg Bernard, in conjunction with the Groundwater Protection Overlay District, which appears at the end of our agenda. So if you don't mind, I'll try and make this quick, and then you're next. How's that? So we do have a land use application, a site plan, and a stormwater management permit application. I have read carefully the site plan application, and I compared that with the section 10.6 of our zoning bylaw, and I'm satisfied that the applicant has complied with our stormwater management bylaw, and I note that our planning director has, in conjunction with both the site plan approval and the special permit for the stormwater management application, prepared a list of conditions, some of which go to the site plan review, which includes landscaping, lighting, and hours of operation. So we can discuss those conditions in conjunction with the stormwater management application, but the members, the folks from Myopia have been given a copy of these suggested conditions, and I think that we can consider them as a package with the stormwater management application. But I don't think that the conditions are terribly onerous, and they do go to some of the comments made by the abutters with respect to landscaping, the lighting, dark sky compliant. I'm sure that the members of the club would be supportive of that. I'm sure that in the evening, in the summer, when they're having events there, they don't want to have spotlights or really harsh lighting. And then the hours of operation we can talk about. I note in your site plan application that you list the hours of operation as 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the conditions go from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Saturdays, so we can review that. So do any members have any comments with respect to the site plan application itself?
I guess other than with the dark sky compliant lighting, it would be nice to have a submittal or cut sheet for the luminaires.
We could add that.
And maybe I missed it.
I don't know to what extent that the light would spill over to the abutters, but it may.
We just have myopia come up and.
Oh, sure.
Evening, Donato from Hanson Associates, with Jonathan Miller from the Ryoko Humpro, or Wilson, the project architect, Wilson Architect. And yes, Mark, we submitted these, as requested at the last meeting, cut sheets for lighting, they're all dark sky compliant. So these are in the file.
Right. Did you want more than that, Jonathan, or is that satisfactory, given that the actual buildings are quite far removed from the abutters?
Yeah, no, it's just helpful to have a document. So if we have it, that's great.
Yes, because I did include cut sheets in the presentation. I have it on USB.
I can provide an explanation for that.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's a Bega floodlight with a recessed LED source. And it'll have a 180-degree shield on it. We used that fixture because we wanted to have entirely downlight without any glare for the members in particular and the public as well. So that'll be mounted on the sidewall and focused down at the pavement.
And there's an additional shield that isn't
There's
shown
an
in the,
additional shield.
and do you have a cut sheet of that?
Did you bring it?
I did.
That's in what I sent you.
This one?
Yeah, that's it.
There's one more.
That, we just got that from the manufacturer, so it's,
Okay, and is that on file with the town?
we can put it on file.
Okay, that'd be great, yeah, just to include it with the file. Thanks.
Well, just to be thorough here, I did look at our amended site plan review bylaw, and the purposes really are to address traffic circulation, public safety, public utilities, the environment, neighborhood character, and appearance. And with respect to the environment, that site plan review bylaw does indicate that there has to be compliance with stormwater management. So I think overall, it's safe to say that you have satisfied the purposes of our site plan review bylaw. And also, the planning board can make the findings that are set forth in that bylaw. particularly recognizing that you're grandfathered in with respect to the buildings on that site, and you have the ZBA approval for that. So, again, we can entertain a motion for the site plan application after we talk about the stormwater management. And I note that the peer reviewer was able to have all his comments addressed by you except one, and that was the second comment. So I would ask that you address that. And is our peer reviewer
I believe it's on the Zoom, yeah.
is on the Zoom? And so you have submitted a request for a waiver with respect to that particular provision, but I am going to let the engineering types fully address that and see if they can elucidate the problem so that the non-engineers here can really understand what the actual issue is.
Hi, Bill, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hi there. Bill, would you mind just briefly going through your review and just that one comment that you said was partially unaddressed?
With regard to the waiver?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, my name is Bill.
Me?
All right, good evening. My name is Bill Ross, I'm in the New England Civil Engineering of Salem, Massachusetts. And I reviewed this project and submitted a peer review letter on February 2nd. The applicant revised the site plans on the 6th of February, and we prepared a second peer review letter on the 14th. The vast majority of the comments were requests for information, including soil borings and a geotechnical report. We needed a signed mass stormwater checklist, an illicit discharge statement, and expanded drainage catchment to include buildings that are tributary to the project area. The applicant has provided all of that information. The result was a larger infiltration BMP, and they selected a different water quality device to give pre-treatment prior to infiltration. The one point that was not addressed is a small area to the south of the existing buildings, which is technically part of the project because the existing pavement is going to be removed and repaved. We requested that this be incorporated in the overall stormwater plan. What they've done is not accounted for the drainage running off from that small area, but they have increased the treatment for the rest of the project. The small paved area in question, I agree with what they've said, that the area is not increasing, the runoff should not increase, and the direction of runoff also should not increase. The only reason I suggested a waiver is if this is to be considered part of the overall project, they are not providing the treatment for the Hamilton regulations. They're providing no treatment at all, the water just runs off into the grass area, as it currently does. So, what they did to compensate for that, as I said, was provide additional treatment for the remainder of the project, which they have done, meeting the mass stormwater requirements and Hamilton standards. So in our opinion, the waiver did seem reasonable. I don't have anything else specific other than I don't think we have any answer to anyone's questions.
Well, I guess the fundamental question is whether or not that runoff from that small area would pose any kind of environmental risk to either, well, to the water supply or, public health. And if it's, in your opinion, that's not the case, then I think the waiver would be appropriate.
Would it be
Sorry
possible?
for speaking to me, I can't hear you all.
Oh, I said the question would be whether the runoff from that particular area would pose any environmental problems, especially any threat to drinking water. Did he hear me?
Bill, did you catch that?
I don't think he's hearing.
Is that on mute? Because it's red. It might be on mute, that speaker there. There you go.
What about now?
Give it a shot.
Yes, I hear that without.
Go ahead.
Bill, Marty had a question for you about the waiver request. I think her question was essentially if that, do you have any concerns about the runoff from the south side of the site causing any issues?
Any environmental issue or any threat to the water supply?
No.
Okay.
Maybe from a practical, if I'm looking at the right paved area, and this may be a question for the applicant, but it's from a practical perspective, because it looks like it's connecting to a gravel pathway also. Is it? Am I not looking at the right?
It would, you know, what would be helpful is for everybody on the board to see where it is. Could the engineer just maybe share a screen and point to the area?
Sure.
I guess the main question is, does it have to be paved? Or could it be some other
I think there's a little
semi-impervious?
Because where you're pointing, is not the area in question.
It's not-
Yeah, that's why I think it'd be helpful to show on the map.
So if we can pull that up,
Because it looks like there's areas where you're removing pavement, but I'm not clear what area is under consideration. That's why a little bit of just a quick tour of what the issues are would just help everybody understand.
That sounds.
I'm assuming but I'm assuming incorrectly, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
It says removed.
Yeah, I don't know.
so
That's
this would
dead
be-
ending.
This is where the existing fuel tanks are and the fuel dispensary is.
Mhm.
And that is being removed, being replaced with the above-ground tank. So for environmentally, condition, it's going to be much improved because they're not going to be refueling over there. There'll be fueling if you go down over to the next page, please. We're providing the above-ground storage tank and the fuel pad and the collection system right over here, and it's going to be covered. Whereas this is where the existing tank and pump dispensers are now. So all we're proposing is to just remove the pumps, remove the underground tank, per fire code requirements, and then we're just gonna repave that area anyway. And this area just kind of slopes off to the south into this like grassed area over here. So it's kind of a natural, you could call it like country drainage, where it just kind of runs off the road into, vegetated area.
And it's, in a sense, a level discharge, so there's no point discharge. It's not a concentrated discharge because it's
Right,
level
not being
paving.
collected anywhere.
Yep.
It's just surface runoff
Yep.
to a grassed area. And it's just, we weren't really defining on what this area that's gonna be repaved, it's, how much that they disturb it as part of the tank removal and the pump. So,
It looks like a 5 by 20 area almost. It's not-
well, it's probably a little bit more of that, depending on where the tank is.
Okay.
And,
So the
Looks
other,
pretty small.
the other question is, there's kind of a steep slope just to the left of that area. I don't know whether it shows up on that plan, the topo plan. So you're not altering that slope at all. Is there anything you can do to just assure that it's sort of a level discharge and there's no risk of a point discharge there?
well, it's just kinda heading.
Yeah, to the bottom left of that screen. Right there. So I was just looking at the bottom left corner of that page, the steep slope, looks like the steep slope in there.
I believe it just goes down to the.
Yeah, so even that slope is a paved area that then goes off to another very large grass area right next to the paddle ports. It doesn't discharge into a water source or anything like that, it goes into a large grass area that's like, we use for like overflow parking.
Yeah, I'm just looking at two little hatched areas that say container. And then the contours that are very close together, very lower left corner of the screen there. That's the area I was just wondering about is, so there's no change in the runoff there, and whenever there's a steep slope, it's always helpful to be thoughtful about how the water's moving across that.
It's more heading towards, like, not towards these, this is like a little high point over here, there's a
Uh-huh.
46 contour, so
Yep.
it's kind of gearing it towards this way,
Mhm.
down that road.
Okay, and not to the bottom corner of the
Correct.
pavement there. Okay.
So the recommendation from the peer review is that we accept the waiver, I imagine.
I believe that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
great.
thanks.
Do members have any other questions?
Just that seemed like virtually experiencing the peer review process seemed like it was a pretty good one. It was in back and forth, and we actually, it's rare you even get a summary saying that you accept all the, usually it's just a dead end, okay, here it goes, like up to us, there was a nice summary that you gave Mr. Ross
Yeah, we
of the
We
process.
used a lot back and forth, so it's helpful to
Yeah.
keep track of the
Yeah.
timeline.
Yeah, the quick response
job.
is appreciated too.
Good job.
Okay, so I think the first order of business is to vote to accept the waiver. So,
I'll make a motion to accept the waiver.
do I have a second?
Second?
We can take a roll call vote, or does anyone have any issues? Well, all in favor of accepting the waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. So then, I think we should talk about the conditions that Mark has proposed. And I would like to have your input. I know you haven't had a lot of opportunity to review these. Mark assures me that they're quite standard. So if you have any issues with any of them, and if any planning board members have any comments, we'll start our discussion. But I'll let you go forward with what you think of these, and then go from there.
I guess the first question we had with regards to this comment regarding number 6, the regular inspection reports, could that be, Mark, is that any personnel that's working, could that be Jonathan sending you those reports, or someone on the construction team, or are you looking for someone on the design team?
I think that could be anyone that's regularly on site doing inspections.
Okay. We will submit a SWIP with this application, and there will be a designated contact for that, so we could probably lump that under his scope with that. And then.
Mark, excuse me, could you follow up then and identify, specifically identify the person or the job title who will do those inspections, work together
Yeah, I
to?
could send Mark, the SWIP outlines, or what they call that person, it's the project coordinator, as part of the SWIP.
It would
Do we
be,
have somebody that we have
Yeah.
contact already, right?
With Bowden, I don't know.
I wouldn't be too specific on the identification of the person. Usually it's just
A
a member of the project team
designation of
who's
the
a
title or something like that,
professional.
yeah.
There's some,
Yeah,
Whoever is responsible, email it to me.
yeah, the responsible party, it doesn't have to be a specific name. People change jobs all the time.
For me, my question would be the post-construction hours of operation. The 7 AM to 7 PM. Currently, I have staff that shows up on site at 5:30, and we start operation at 6 AM. We've been doing that for the 12 years I've been there, and for the 100 years the golf course has been there. It's a matter of getting out and maintaining everything before our first tee time.
So this is maintenance activities.
And then it's like-
Oh, so this is like mowing the lawns, and you have not
Yeah,
had,
like I'm here saying, starting at 7 AM, just, it won't work for me.
well, you have hours of operation during construction. That could,
That's acceptable.
That's
It's this-
accept-
It's this post-construction.
oh, right, I see, down at the bottom, yes. And you've never had complaints from the abutters about that?
Nope.
And so you're
And
proposing,
we're very mindful of it, like when we go out into the golf course, we always go into the middle of the property and then work out to the butters, so we're never close to the butters till after hours.
so you,
Yeah,
you're
I-
proposing 6 AM to,
Yeah, that's our start time. People show up on site at 5:30 and then we just start kind of like getting ready for the day, but then we're operating on the golf course at 6 AM.
to what time?
Usually around 2:30.
It is kind of an interesting wording, because it is a maintenance facility, but the exception is given to maintenance activities for the
Yeah,
for the periods of operation. So it is, I'm not sure it's even worth a note, like it's probably worth just deleting the post-construction condition altogether, because it is a maintenance facility. I
Right.
think the major concern of folks usually is the beeping and backing up of waste removal
Exactly.
vehicles and things like that. Not necessarily lawnmowers.
The reason I included, one of the abutters made comments about noise.
Sure, yeah.
That's the only reason.
Historically or in the future?
I don't recall
I
any of
I
the
just can't
butters.
remember.
Yeah, she was worried about, will the new operation increase
Ah,
noise?
okay.
Right, she was concerned about landscaping.
Yeah.
I'd be a little reluctant to try and rein in tightly the hours of operation. Facilities has special events and other things that would, you know, really impinge on that, I think.
Well, I think Pat's right. It's the beeping and it's the equipment and it's the construction noise that would be the concern of the abutters. And if you can attest that you've never had any complaints about how you operate normally outside of construction, then we will not impose that condition because it's never been an issue.
Exactly.
Would
It should
people
get it should get better with the facility.
Yeah, I think I might just propose eliminating that
eliminating
section.
it?
Yeah.
Because if I were in a butter in any event, I would like the fact that you're pretty much done at 2:30.
You are adding landscaping,
Absolutely. yeah.
so it's kind of like,
Just that was the other, final question, well, another question we had was, this is a detailed landscaping plan that we provided?
We have, if you look, it's on, it's an architectural site plan that identifies the new plantings.
If we need a original.
It should be.
Yeah, the only other condition I've seen imposed post-construction is usually from CONSCOM related to the establishment of the landscaping years following construction activities, just to make sure that it was actually,
And I forget, did you have to go for this Conservation Commission? No.
So all the trees on this plan with the little X in them are proposed to be moved. So what we would do is, when we work out the species with Jonathan, we'll identify, annotate those species, so you know what's been planted.
So I didn't, yeah, I didn't see the species on here, so that would be the common around average, just to identify what you're planting to plant. And then one of the abutter comments was just making sure that you maintain the landscape buffer. So my thought was to perhaps transfer some of these proposed plantings to the northerly side, just to supplement that buffer from Homestead Circle.
Sure, yeah, she was, and I saw her like after the meeting too, she was talking about the golf hole on number 4. She thought we were gonna be disturbing something on the golf course, it's down the bottom of the plan.
just wanted to make sure a couple of those trees.
And they're not, we're not
Yeah.
touching anything on the golf course, we're touching on the other side of the golf course, so you might not even be able to see it on this plan, she's talking about further down, like that's a golf hole right there. And then on the bottom of the plan, there's another buffer of trees for Homestead, and she just wanted to make sure we weren't touching that, but we're not touching any of that.
So have we resolved the issues? So Mark, you can finalize these conditions, and I think the outline of them is in place, but you can converse with Mark, and we'll get these conditions finalized, and then, unless there are any issues, the planning board overall is supportive of these conditions.
The only other minor detail would be to get the submittal for the cowl for the light fixture on file.
Right, with those minor changes. So, I think we're in a position to vote on the stormwater permit application as well as the site plan review application, subject to the conditions that Mark has proposed as modified by planning board members here tonight. So I think we should take two votes, the first for the site plan application and the second for the stormwater management application. So first off, I'll entertain a motion to approve the site plan review application subject to the conditions discussed this evening.
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now I'll entertain a motion to approve the stormwater management permit application, subject to the waiver, as well as the conditions that we have discussed here this evening.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And when the snow melts, you might be able to begin doing something, and when will that be?
All you have to do is get rid of 3 feet of snow.
Thank you, gentlemen. So the next item on our agenda is a discussion with the Board of Health, and in particular with respect to the groundwater protection overlay district. Did you make a copy of this model groundwater protection overlay district for David and Greg?
I have an extra copy.
Yeah, I have an extra copy too, so.
And David sent some materials.
Yes.
that Should be the last item in your packet.
Well, just by way of background, so everybody's on the same page, the planning board proposed an amendment to the GPOD, in particular to section 9.1.4, to require 80,000 square feet per dwelling unit for residential construction in the GPOD. And that has engendered some controversy because it does limit development, and in fact, there have been developments within the GPOD which have not adhered to that metric. And so I think it was Mark Johnson who appeared before the planning board and suggested that we review the entire bylaw, particularly because of new technologies with respect to wastewater treatment. And so here we are. And so in thinking about this and looking at it, I stumbled across the Model Groundwater Protection District bylaw, which really was proposed by the Association of Boards of Health. And if you look at the copy that you have, it's remarkably similar to our GPOD. There was some information about groundwater protection on the Commonwealth's website, but it really was focused just on pesticides and really was not applicable to what we're dealing with. But this model bylaw is obviously, whoever drafted the GPOD was aware of this model bylaw because some of the language is identical. But the one thing that is not in this model bylaw is a provision analogous to section 9.1.4, which brings us to David and Greg's presentation about what Title V requires and how that relates to 9.1.4, and whether that provision that we have in our bylaw of requiring 80,000 square feet per dwelling unit in the GPOD makes sense in view of the Title V requirements, which I would assume are deemed adequate regardless of where a house is located. Am I correct? So you, gentlemen, please tell us what's going on, and also about these enhanced nitrogen removal technologies.
Would you like to start?
I'll just say, Marty and I have talked about this, and I think we collectively came to the impression that the state Title V regulations are lengthy, complicated, routinely amended, subject to technology advancements, and so on. And I thought it would be mutually beneficial if we came to a planning board meeting and tried to help give you some understanding of how the Title V regulations come into play in the groundwater protection overlay district, and it's complicated. So Greg is our in-house expert, and any Title V concerns, questions, issues we have, Greg is able to answer, so that's why he's here. Greg?
I may be able to answer. I'll start off just by saying that the Town of Hamilton Board of Health has no local regulations concerning septics in the groundwater protection overlay district. It's just been a zoning issue. Right, 80,000 square feet is the current requirement, is that
Right.
correct? I believe you guys have in your possessions some GIS mapping that I prepared, and none of this is from any special website. This is all downloaded from the Hamilton GIS. Yeah, there you go. That looks familiar. So again, those purple areas right there are the overlay district. Mostly down around Bridge Street, School Street on the right, and the other portion is mostly Highland Avenue and part of Asbury Street, I believe.
Greg, it might be helpful to explain how those very complicated shapes were derived. What's the basis for that?
I am not prepared to discuss that because that was determined by the town and their zoning, I believe. It's a zoning overlay district. And how that came up, I would imagine that they considered that the cone of influence for drinking water wells.
Yeah, there are, Hamilton depends almost entirely on the Idlewild Field wells adjacent to the Ipswich River in the far left-hand corner of town. So those are the three wells that feed the water treatment plant that provides the water that all of us drink, unless you have a private well. Over at the right-hand corner, there are two wells, the Bridge Street well and the School Street well. The Bridge Street well has been out of service for a long time. It's just not used. The School Street well was providing potable water for the town until the PFAS levels in the well rose to the point where they were significantly above the state's then current standard of 20 parts per trillion. They have remained somewhere in that neighborhood while the state standard was reduced to 4. So the town, DPW, took the School Street well offline and started to study ways in which the water from that well could be treated to meet the 4 Park Twain standard. And so, for the time being, that there is no water being currently supplied to the town's potable water system out of that School Street well over there in the right-hand corner. But it will if the town is able to treat the PFAS levels and get them down to 4. So that shape, I think, generally coincides with where the town and the state feel that water runoff going into the groundwater will end up at the School Street well at some point, and or the Bridge Street well, even though that's offline, probably indefinitely. So that's the reason. That's the reason why those two GPODs are where they are, and the shape, I think, is it's derived from where the hydrogeology folks think the water from running off from the surface into the ground, becoming groundwater, then travels over to the wells.
Just as a side note, I believe I read that Weston and Sampson was the consultant used to delineate the GPOD.
I think you're right. So that's a simplified explanation for what you see on that chart, of that map.
And then we have the interim wellhead protection area. Why do they call it interim wellhead? It seems like a weird choice of words to me for a well. I mean, do you know?
I don't know how they come up with the name, but what I can tell you is that area has a half-mile radius around the well, and that's where restrictions on septic size comes into play. It's considered what's called a nitrogen-sensitive area.
So it's just the areas in the interim wellhead protection area?
And the zone 2.
And the zone 2, okay.
So right now, up on the screen, you just have the interim wellhead area, and that's Bridge Street, and the state has not taken that off its nitrogen-sensitive area, even though you're telling me it's offline. And these other areas here in pink, this is what's considered a zone 2. Zone 2 drinking water supply. Basically, it's the same reasoning behind the boundaries of the groundwater protection overlay district. There's another slide where they're overlaid one on top of another.
Right.
And they're almost the same. There's probably just a discrepancy on the hydrogeologist that helped determine the overlay district didn't necessarily agree with what the state is calling zone 2s. But we are restricted to the size of septic systems in those areas.
Just those two areas? Zone 2 and
Zone 2 in the wellhead protection district.
Yeah.
Is it the size of the septic system or the total, the total cubic feet of septic systems across any, composite development?
Well, I tried to break it down as easy as I could. Septic systems, at least residential septic systems, they're all based on how many bedrooms you have.
Right.
All right. So basically, it's 4 bedrooms per acre, and it's a builder's acre, so 40,000 square feet, 4 bedrooms per acre for standard septic systems. And the easiest way to remember that is 1 bedroom for every 10,000 square feet of lot area you have.
And this is just in the zone 2 and the.
Zone 2 and the
And the
interim
interim,
wellhead
that's
protection, yes.
that's the standard.
Yeah.
So the planning board's 80,000 square feet per dwelling unit, in some senses, it's restrictive, but it could be considered almost irrelevant from a Title V point of view.
I agree. Unless you were intending to change the zoning from 80,000 square feet to, let's say, 30,000 square feet.
Then Title V would come into play.
Then
And
title,
if
yeah,
it's in the same area as the Zone 2 and the interim wellhead protection district, a 30,000 square foot lot can only have 3 bedrooms.
right, got it.
But you did mention earlier, there are innovative alternative systems, nitrogen removal systems. They may be able to bump it up to 5 bedrooms per acre, and at the most 6 bedrooms per acre,
If they have a certain type of
if
septic.
they have a certain type of nitrogen removal system.
And then from your information, then the Board of Health in Hamilton doesn't regulate that, it's the DEP? Will they,
The DEP regulates it, and the Board of Health enforces it.
okay,
And the same is true of any gray water reuse systems, right? It's a CMR 85 or something like that. An application
Any
with the
wastewater
state to,
generated from a dwelling is subject to that same restriction.
yep.
Greg, could you communicate some sense of number to what you said? So here's a 40,000 square foot property with 4 bedrooms. Somebody wants to put 5 bedrooms on there, and it's in the GPOD. They're gonna have to add a nitrogen removal system.
If it also happens to be in the Zone 2 or the interim wellhead protection area, yes.
What is that, does that triple the price of a septic, of the total septic treatment system, or what?
No, I would not say.
Doubles it?
Maybe a 30% increase. Now, on top of the increase in the installation of the system, there are maintenance requirements, whether it be quarterly maintenance or twice a year maintenance. Depends on the technology. Most of these technologies, for the first couple of years, they want quarterly reports. And everything gets submitted to me, and it gets submitted to the DEP. And after a certain amount of good reports, over maybe, say, 5 years, they might be able to reduce the frequency of the inspections.
How many of those systems, are there any in Hamilton currently, or?
Down at Brick Ends Farm on Asbury Street is one, which isn't in the ground yet. There are plenty of nitrogen-reduced systems in town. I can't come up with an address right away because they have been in existence since before I started here.
Was it?
I'm receiving reports constantly.
Okay.
This is different than actual sewage treatment. There's primary, secondary, and tertiary treatment facilities, right, which you do for a larger development.
Most of these are secondary treatment. It happens within a tank. It doesn't happen in the ground. It happens before the effluent
Right.
gets into the ground.
Right.
They're called secondary treatment units, or STUs, the majority of them.
and what about like at Gordon Conwell, where they had a wastewater treatment plant? And that's in the GPOD, but just put that aside. If you had a development and they had, say it was on the large side, and there were, 20 or 30 units on insufficient land, and there was a wastewater treatment plant, how would that work? I don't think it would be permissible in the GPOD just applying
As
it.
it is now.
As it is now. But would these alternative technologies permit something like that?
If they can meet the,
DEP?
if they can meet the water usage per acre, and if they have to use nitrogen removal to bump it up.
Well, like if you had a sophisticated plant, the way they do at New England Biolabs or even at Gordon
Or
Conwell.
they have it at Gordon Cromwell.
Yeah.
That particular system, once a large system, and that's considered a large system, because it's over 10,000 gallons of water usage a day, the Board of Health doesn't have any jurisdiction.
Right.
The state DEP has jurisdiction.
It's a groundwater discharge permit
Right.
application.
And
So
I
that-
wonder, do they look at whether or not it's in a wellhead protection, a zone 2 or a?
See, I don't know how far back that Gordon system goes. It goes back to the 80s. It may
Decades.
not- Yeah.
It goes way
decades.
back.
So-
Right, but I mean,
If you were to build a new
a
one,
new one today, would the DEP look to see whether it was in a Zone 2 wellhead protection
I would say
area?
a change of use would necessitate DEP to.
To
review
weigh
that
in
closely.
as to
Oh,
whether or not
absolutely.
they'd even let something go forward?
Absolutely.
It's the same permitting process, it's just a conditional, like, we have upstream and downstream well monitoring points that monitor the groundwater quality adjacent to the leaching field of the discharge facility and things like that. So it's the same permitting process regardless, it's just how many requirements and conditions they impose on you based on the type of effluent, the type of operation you're running, how much water you're trying to use and discharge. All those things come into play when they're reviewing that permit application. And it's a lengthy process, and it usually is quite a bit of money. You know, they, based on its risk in the area and everything else, they may require certain
More
minimum
treatment,
required
more treatment.
like a certain certification license to operate the facility that's certain amount of hours per day, you know, beyond the monthly, quarterly sampling requirements and everything else. It's pretty robust and extensive.
Yeah, well,
And those
it
reports
should
come
be.
in monthly. for board.
Coming monthly and quarterly and,
And Greg, I think it'd be worth elaborating just a little bit on the project that this board approved at Asbury Common, with the issue there of the nitrogen treatment addition to the system.
Technically,
How'd
that
that
was,
work?
that was a zoning board application, but.
Was it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
the zoning
sorry.
board. But still, you know, a comprehensive permit, they can waive local regulations, but they can't waive state regulations with respect to a large system like that.
Right, and they didn't. We didn't waive anything. They have enough land area to, I think I have a deed upstairs for it, it's 150 acres, I believe is what they ultimately purchased. But because they are in a zone 2, they had to meet a couple of stipulations. One is you had to have the land area. They have the land area. Secondly is because you're in a zone 2 and you're gonna generate more than 2,000 gallons a day, which they are, they're generating 9,900 gallons per day. Another 100 gallons that would have bumped it up to the state, so they played it pretty cute. So anyway, that had to be a nitrogen removal system, and it is. It's a recirculating sand filter, and what happens is the waste, just like a home, would go to a septic tank and treatment. Half of it goes to a leaching area, half of it goes to treatment. It trickles down to the bottom of this sand filter, it's collected and sent back to the septic tank. So it cycles and recirculates to help remove the nitrogen. And because it's it's more than 2,000 gallons a day, DEP did have to weigh in. They don't have jurisdiction on it, but they did have to weigh in on the design, and it was approved.
Right. Any questions on this?
I have a question. You mentioned that the DEP regulates, but the Board of Health enforces. So in like the residential context for a nitrogen removal system, hypothetically, I don't know if you can answer this because there's not, it seems like a ton of these in Hamilton yet, but what would that enforcement look like? Like if a homeowner failed to keep up with the maintenance requirements for this type of system?
The first thing that happens when someone fails to keep up with it is the outfit that has been in charge of inspecting it sends me a letter. Hey Greg, the guys down there at 10 School Street,
Okay.
they're not keeping up with it. So it starts out with a letter. And a follow-up letter, and after that, if they go to sell the house, usually they're coming into, you know, the buyer, potential buyer, if they're sharp enough, or they have brokers sharp enough, first thing they see is, hey, they haven't inspected the system in
Right.
3 years. And an enforcement order can be given, but usually they, once they catch a whiff that there's gonna be trouble, they
Yep.
take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you wouldn't want to wait until they go to sell the house because they could be out of compliance for years.
True.
So,
And then
Right.
they're gonna lose the sale of the house, and that's what.
well, but that doesn't help the groundwater in the meantime.
Right. Damage is
So what
done.
we can do is issue an enforcement order.
Yeah, and what if they don't comply with that? I mean, can you cause an
What
eviction
we do
notice
is
because
when
they're
we-
not
When we
up?
run into situations like that, we try, you send a letter notifying they're out of compliance. Nothing, and you stipulate you got 30 days to comply. Nothing happens. You send a second letter, certified mail, it's specify another deadline. Nothing happens. At that point, we go to town council and we ask town council to please write, prepare a letter on a legal firm's letterhead specifying in no uncertain terms, we know you're in violation, you have 30 days to correct the situation. If you don't, here are the dollar fines that you're gonna be subject to per day of violation, and further enforcement actions can be imposed.
So
And it almost always produces compliance.
yeah, in those regs, do you get a lien on the property if they don't pay the fines?
It's an interesting question.
Because you should.
I've never had to go that far.
Right, but it should be a lien, because then if they don't pay, you can force a sale of the house to satisfy the lien. That'd get their attention.
Yeah. We do have that option available. We in fact include that option in our septic loan program. We have a lien placed on the property in the event of
Non-payment, yeah, that's, I don't know how you amend your regulations, but that's a good idea to always get a lien on the property if someone doesn't pay. Because then you can force the sale of the house to satisfy the lien.
Generally, the fines are enough to ultimately induce compliance. That's my experience.
Well, this gives us
So
a
in these,
lot
in
to
these
think about.
areas near the wells, I'm looking at that, there's a lot of existing development that is far, far denser than,
I'm afraid you're right. And what can we
I mean,
do
you get
about
on
it?
these neighborhoods and there's little tiny lots.
They're all grandfathered.
They're all grandfathered. And there's no, when the houses turn over, you can't ungrandfather them, or,
You can't ungrandfather them, but what you of course can do is, here's our recourse at that point. Greg oversees the Title V inspection that's required before you can close on the sale. That Title V inspection report is a requirement of the transaction. He gets a copy, and if he's satisfied with it, then they can proceed. We can't ungrandfather them. Obviously, if there is any kind of a compliance, if there's any non-compliance determined by the inspector, that's the trigger. Then we can impose the condition that they have to have a compliant system before the sale can proceed.
Yeah, because it looks like Asbury Grove
So
is in,
the problem really is the fact that no septic system is forever. They all ultimately fail, and for a million different reasons. But, sometimes that'll go on for 50 years. Sometimes only 10 or 20. Tree roots have a way of invading septic system infiltration fields and wrecking them. Anyway, yeah, the grandfathered residences in that circle, I'm familiar with, there's at least 100. And there's probably, some of them are gonna be failed systems, and that doesn't show up until a property goes up for sale. And inspection has to be conducted.
And
Greg,
not
you
only
wanna add
that,
some thoughts to that?
yeah, not only that, is anyone in those areas that's filing a building permit, before the building inspector signs off on any building permits, I get the application. And that's when I get a chance to review, all right, where are they? Are they in a zone 2? They want to add a bedroom? Can't do it. Or maybe their lot is large enough to accommodate another bedroom, so that's when my comments to the building permit application is, you have to upgrade your system. You have a 4-bedroom septic system, you want to add a bedroom, you need a 5-bedroom septic system. If they've got the area. If they don't have the area, then I can't approve the application.
But Bill, that's a good observation. You're right on that one.
So what happens if 10 years from now, the well is getting destroyed? Or contaminated because of all this grandfathering? Then the town has to come in and create a sewage system in that area and have a huge treatment plant?
So far, the monitoring results from that School Street well have not picked up any violations of the coliform bacteria standard, for example. The
Okay.
only one that's been a problem there is the PFAS levels. And, Greg and I've done an analysis of that well and and what may be contributing to those PFAS levels. It is highly likely, it's just simply the fact that PFAS is ubiquitous, and, there's 100 residences there.
They're all
have
they're
septic.
all crushing plastic containers and doing everything else, right. Cooking with stuff that's plastic, yeah.
And something that this has sensitized us to is the fact that we've got to get our DPW folks to institute, along with the Board of Health, institute a public awareness campaign of an effort to sensitize the residents of that particular one, that the town water supply depends on their being good neighbors and not using pesticides on their lawn, not dumping, half-empty paint cans into the backyard, stuff like that. It's just common sense things. Not continually pouring, Clorox down the drain, etc. So we have to initiate that kind of a public
Okay,
service.
but going forward in terms of our own groundwater protection district, very low dense, we're kind of sort of treating this problem with a very big hammer, saying, the way to solve this problem is just not to allow much development, as opposed to if I'm a developer and I say I want to do a cluster development of, 100 units on 10 acres, and I'm willing to do anything to treat that waste. Can we design a system for them?
Probably. It's just a matter of.
It's just a matter of cost and.
Exactly.
Okay. So why, from the point of view of the planning board, why shouldn't we allow that, assuming that enforcement mechanisms and testing and standards are in place?
Because here's the, as Greg likes to say, we start at Title V, and then everything kind of comes after that. That is the really first order of concern that a developer should have. What kind of Title V compliance situation am I subject to on that property?
Right.
That's the first thing they want to know. How many bedrooms can I get?
And there goes, that determines the price that they're gonna be able to charge for that house. How many bedrooms?
So it's interesting because it's also not a town problem, it's a regional problem. Our aquifers, Essex's aquifers, is Wyndham's, is Topsfield's, is Ipswich's, and everywhere else. So there's a North Shore Water Resiliency Task Force that's talking about not only supply, but also treatment. And I wonder, this is where those conversations are interesting, and I think there's some movement there regionally, like when we declare a water ban, does Beverly also declare a water ban because it's the same water that we're using?
We've had meetings about this, and it's a constant complaint of the public. I'm prohibited from sprinkling my lawn. But when I go down to Beverly or Salem in particular, they're all sprinkling their lawn, so what gives?
Yeah.
So,
But that's where I think that task force is trying to look at this, not only from a residential, but also commercial perspective. And I don't know, do we participate in that task force?
Oh,
Yeah.
Hamilton is probably.
I know
the most
Irwa is.
Hamilton's probably the most active community in the task force, and Joe DeMelowitz is probably the most active member of that.
Good.
Because Hamilton, it turns out that Hamilton is kind of at the centroid of all of the feasible options for increasing our water supply resilience. And in that position, it kind of puts the town at the center of action. And a lot of the options that are being considered by the task force involve piping water through Hamilton, one way or another, as the hub, kind of the hub of the engineering solutions to the problem of water supply. So, I mean, the good news is, I'm surprised at how well the task force is, it's all because of Bruce Tarr's influence.
Yeah, right.
And making it happen. So, I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised at how well they're coming along with the progress.
I was impressed at her discussion, and I want, like, if the GPOD mapping somehow is affected as an outcome of that process too, with different imposed regulations and, beyond the mapping itself, but other type of considerations. And as again, I think they're talking about it correctly, and just the supply problem and the treatment problem.
Yeah.
Like it's
So
at both ends.
the implication of that draft amendment to the regulation you said, it's the low density development that you're concerned about, and you could specify you've got to have at least 80,000 square feet per residence, or whatever it is, if you want. But ultimately, you could, the development option that you are trying to regulate, I think, starts with Title V regulations, and everything kind of flows from that.
Right. Right. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. You've certainly given us a lot of things to think about if we move forward on trying to bring the GPOD a little bit up to date with the new technologies, which, on the one hand, that's a good idea. On the other hand, you think about our water resources and the lack thereof. Do we really want to promote a lot of development in Hamilton?
I think it's more a supply problem than a treatment problem that we're dealing with in this town. But anyway,
Right.
I'm pleased that our boards are working together. I think that's great. We need collaboration on
Right,
this.
right.
So thanks for your time.
No, thank you for coming.
Stacking everywhere.
Makes me insane. Capture of all that stuff, capture system outdoors. You have to all Oh, yeah, everywhere. We don't allow that in our projects. Interesting. Well, you can do it, it's just more effort. Just like.
We
dust
can't
collection
use
in
the
shop.
town can't unilaterally, I think.
We can't do anything with
Well, you
respect
can't
to
do
the
anything, have a
Title V.
groundwater production overlay district whose purpose is to limit the use of water as opposed to ensuring adequate treatment. There's those two options, and I don't,
I'm sure if we tried to limit development somehow, if you said they can't, that the Commonwealth would step in and say, no, you can't do that because they're pushing more housing.
right.
More housing.
You can't
So
have a,
As a
can't-
board, do we want to discuss possible next steps on this process?
We certainly can do that. Let's
Do
see
we
what-
want to do it another night or tonight?
It's up to you. On the one hand, I appreciate why we have 80,000 square feet per dwelling unit. I mean, that.
hey, why don't we just
that's-
ban development? I mean, no more, sorry, we're running out of water, the water we have is getting,
Well, it's
infiltrated by, there's no development, then you'd be in court.
But it's not a very precise tool. It's protective. It will have the effect of protecting the groundwater.
Right
but
now, it's sort of it's a random metric. But what would be interesting, I would think, is just like Title V allows for more latitude and has for a long time, if you use the nitrogen removal systems, it'd be helpful for us to have that somehow in the bylaw in a way that parallels Title V.
Have some table, right, which says, if you just, throw your old generic septic system in there, it's 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet. If you do this treatment, it's 2 bedrooms per 10,000 square feet.
You have to be
If
careful
you
not to
build
get.
If you build a fancy system and something, you can do
The
up to
planning
20
board
buildings.
can't be engineers. So the balancing act is,
Well, wait a minute.
Go ahead.
I don't
It's
have that
site-specific?
language I proposed at
I mean,
that point.
a little bit.
Technology specific, I think, because.
Yes.
Well, what I'm saying is, you have this list of technologies you can use, which is gonna have an increasing price tag that goes with, in terms of treatment, goes to
Yeah.
more bedrooms
That's-
per
Well, you
acre.
know,
That's
all
the
you-
concept,
all
but you have to
do
be-
is say comply with Title V,
yes,
Basically.
you could.
basically.
Yes.
That's
So
all you
the-
have to say.
Yeah,
I
so the-
mean, we could eliminate the 80,000
Well,
square feet
no,
per
that's,
dwelling unit.
that's a different subject,
Well,
but go
that
ahead.
goes to two things. It actually protects the groundwater, but it also limits development. But if you were to
It
just.
limits use too.
Yeah, if you were to just say any development within these areas have to comply with Title V, they have to comply with Title V anyway.
So I think what we're kind of forgetting here is, and this is beyond my expertise, but Hallie Aldridge went through a study, and they were the ones who came up with the
Right.
80,000 square
Right.
feet. And it was 80,000 square feet, not to beat a dead horse here, but it was 80,000 square feet per dwelling unit, not per lot. That's how it was
Right, right, right,
crafted.
right.
Okay? And so there was a reason they came up with that number, but that was an older metric, which didn't account for more alternative technologies. So I think one approach would be you don't necessarily throw out the number, but you start to encourage the use of the sort of supplemental technologies. And so that 80's the number, the starting number per dwelling unit, but you can have more latitude
If you use more
if you
technology.
use more
Isn't that
technology.
what I
So
did
it's
in
like,
that
it's like a
draft?
density tax in a sense. You're not preventing the density, but it comes with a price tag.
More
I
density,
think
more treatment, higher price.
Yep.
I think I sent around a draft that I did, and it basically said, the metric is 80,000 square feet per dwelling unit unless you can demonstrate, compliance with Title V and the use of some new technologies.
Yeah,
Is there
so,
a waiver? Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, you could-
So
you
what
could-
Waivers allowed under,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a great start. I would feel more comfortable if we took that draft and then ran it past somebody who is fairly leading edge septic engineer to say, here's how I would word that to make sure you don't get into trouble. That's
Yeah,
all.
I think
that
we-
would, that would
Yes.
be.
Regulations
That
that you
would,
would
that
have.
would
And
be,
not-
that would be.
Did you find it?
And the
Rather have
balancing
us
act,
do it, we give them the spirit, this is what we're
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
aiming for.
and the balancing act, it's just like an attorney, an attorney has to decide, is the contract, does it outline every eventuality, or is it more general and boilerplate? Because if it's too specific, the thing you miss bites you. If it's
Yeah,
not specific
You're always
enough,
gonna miss
yeah.
something.
So,
I
so
can't
it's
find
it's a tightrope act, and I would feel more comfortable if an engineer guided us through that tightrope, that's all.
Yeah, well, the way
Engineer should be
I.
Arthur Cunningham.
The way I set it up
All
was
for
that we got out of the business and just said, you could, get a waiver if you establish this, and this. And if you don't, and.
Wouldn't call it a
and-
waiver.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a waiver, but it also, one of the other provisions that was in there is that any system that you propose has to be peer-reviewed and you pay for it.
Yeah, so again, all of those are great impulses, but they need to be guided by an
An
engineer.
engineer.
The
That's
state
all.
regulates
But
it
we're
pretty
not
well,
actually doing
those
any
technologies.
engineering.
No, we're not doing the engineering, it's just wording it so that you don't, it's just like writing a contract, so you don't trip.
Okay.
That's all.
So let's pull that up for our next meeting, that idea, and then we can then,
And-
we just had a guy in here, who's stormwater management, maybe he can opine on it, he's an engineer.
And I would think
Salem.
if we wrote the draft and
Send it to him.
and outlined what the performance goals of it were, you could accompany it with a narrative. This is our goal, this is the purpose of doing that, so that the engineer looks at it and they say, I see what they're trying to do, I see their words, here's how I can help. So you can reduce the number of hours they have to put into it, because they're sharpshooting it.
Yeah.
So
I think
50
that
years
works.
later, they're not trying to figure out why Amy came up with.
Well, you know,
8,000
Yeah.
the thing
square
I
it
think
is,
feet.
that
the-
works really well for treatment. It doesn't at all get into the question
of supply, no.
of supply,
No.
of use.
But the bottom line is, any system has to comply with Title V, full stop.
Right, but the idea of this is it's just upping the ante a little bit.
But that's an interesting consideration, like a Title V is just assuming 4 bedrooms, is assuming some water flow per bedroom, which may not apply with different technologies you might use for, your fixtures and water reuse or anything
Well,
like that.
remember the whole business with 133 Essex. Their system.
So I've done quite a bit of work on Cape Ann where septic systems are kind of like antithetical to the topography.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a big rock with a little bit of topsoil.
Big rock. Nowhere for the
So
dog
that's
to
what
go.
Cape, that's what the island is. And there are engineers around who were adept at this, and we've had many bizarre lots that you wouldn't think could have a septic system because it's solid rock, and there's ways to do it. It does cost more money, but if somebody really wants that site, they pay for it and it works. So it's just a matter of drafting it so that it encourages it but doesn't put us in the position of engineering it.
Right. Okay, well, to be continued, but I think it was very helpful to have.
This was a
them
good
here.
discussion.
Yep.
That was a very good
Yeah,
discussion.
thank you. That was good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so next up, potential grant opportunities. Now, I think this is just what Mark is suggesting, and I'm going to let him talk, is that we have to, by the end of the month, put ourselves in a position that we can actually apply for grants. We have to meet certain metrics, and then when it comes to other grants like MassWorks or whatever, then we're in a position to apply for them. Whereas if we didn't, I guess if we don't do the application, then we don't get to apply. Is that how it works?
You can
Or-
still apply, but you get
You
more
know,
points.
yeah, you get points.
Yeah.
You can explain it. You know more about it than
So
I do.
before you start, I have a quick question. Do we only get credit for things that are being built or also things that are zoned for more housing units?
It's building permits.
Building permits, okay.
Well, foundation permits count, so we can count Asbury Commons, a big development on Asbury.
Yep.
They filed their foundation permit at the end of last year. So this is a program the state has called Housing Choice Communities. And if you permit a certain number of housing units based on your existing housing units, so percentage of housing units, you are eligible to apply for this designation. So you can do as low as 1.5%, and then there's different, as high as to like 10%. But in Hamilton's case, so Asbury Commons, big one, that's 45 housing units. That was building permits issued end of last year. We also have Willow Flats, which was 2021. We have Asbury, the Habitat for Humanity project that was permitted. We had the last permits for the Canterbrook development. So it's a fair amount of permits have been issued in 5 years, and it equates to 3%, more than 3% of our housing units that have come online or are going to be coming online very soon.
How about, just out of curiosity, Gordon Conwell, have we heard anything from the AG? Because those 209 apartments could come online.
It wouldn't be within last year, though. And,
Oh, right, sorry, yeah.
Next month, the AG has to get back to us. April
And
3rd is the deadline.
wouldn't they consider those already existing? Or because this sort of like a change of use from a dorm to an apartment? It's not a building permit, you're not producing it, you're just changing the use.
Well,
Yes,
they
but
would
there'd
have to
be
get a
s-
building permit, aren't
There'd have to
they?
be something official saying it's officially now apartments instead of dormitories.
Yeah.
So I know things are happening, I know that they have a buyer, Joe just had a meeting with the buyer of the apartments. The AG has just a few weeks left to approve the bylaw, so. Things are happening there, but it's not quite to the point.
And the deadline for this is the end of this month, this submission. And it says this is a one-year cycle?
5 years, actually, so. If
So-
we get this designation, it counts for 5 years, it counts,
And there's not another application in a year?
no,
Okay, so time is now, I get it, okay.
yep.
As I said to Mark, I don't see any downside of this. I mean, it doesn't require us to ask for money from the Commonwealth, but we'd have the option.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's, and this is already perfectly approved, it's not, these are just sort of crediting the town for things that we've done in the past. And it, in this packet, it lists all the grant programs that you get preference. If you do this, and it's not just housing grants, it's also economic development, it's conservation. land
Oh,
conservation.
so I'm going to just jump ahead, but I have one question, and it relates to the util materials, which they talk about the public realm standards and guidelines and whatever. Would any of these grant programs enable us to get a grant to actually produce that?
That's where I'm going. I'm hoping we can,
Great minds think alike, is that it? Oh.
yeah, I'm hoping that we can, one of these economic development grants, we can apply the sort of step 2 of the town center zone.
Right, and see, the HDC did a MassWorks grant application, and I think they were almost finalists. So you could ask Rick Mitchell for a copy of that. And that was to do sidewalks and this, that, and the other. But, certainly, I don't know if they'd like us to crib off of it, but, to do a grant application for the town center, they might have some of the work already done in terms of what
So
is
these are,
required by MassWorks.
these grants are limited to brick and mortar type things, not for planning, is that right?
Oh, no, they
No,
could
no,
be
there's-
planning.
It could be planning. So it could be planning, it could be guidelines.
Yep. Let me pull it up.
I mean, there are programs for the acquisition of conservation land.
Yeah, but that's still brick and mortar, that's a thing versus a piece of paper. So sometimes grants don't fund studies or planning, they fund doing stuff.
Well, yeah, so the MassWorks is for doing stuff, yeah, so getting the planning, well, they have land use planning assistance grant.
Yeah, that's why I'm just asking
Yeah,
for
so that's-
clarification on that. There-
yeah.
Where's the dividing line for?
On page 2, it has that, yeah, and I don't know where the,
So there's the land grant program, you get bonus points for that program, land use planning assistance grants, you get prioritize and bonus points if you're visiting community, acquisition of recreation land, correction of parks, you get bonus points for that grant program, MassWorks, bonus points. Seaport, I don't think we qualify for the coastal community, but MassDOT program, reconstruction expansion projects that go through MassDOT, scoring project selection program. MassDOT will give bonus points to projects located in designated communities, complete streets, technical assistance and construction grants for communities, and get bonus points for grant applications under the program. In the Clean Water Trust, you get a reduced interest rate if you're a designated community.
It's funny that they rank that lower. A little bit of an irony.
well,
But we don't have to decide what it goes to, we just need to be eligible for it.
yeah, so right now, we're considering whether or not we should move forward with getting, having the opportunity to seek grants. And
Yep.
that's like, sure, why not?
Yep. So what do we need to do?
I think we should vote to authorize
So that's all we need to do is
Mark as our
Okay.
town planner to go forward with this.
all in?
So I'll entertain a motion to do that. What should we call this? To obtain the Commonwealth's Housing Choice designation.
Yes.
Is that it?
But what we're voting to do is to authorize
Him
him
to go forward
to
with,
submit
to
the
submit that
Okay.
for
Is
the
that-
Housing Choice
Is that
designation.
good enough to say so moved to?
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay, next up,
Rambling mess.
next up, master plan implementation and the potential formation of an implementation committee. That's up to the select board. I'll fill you in a little bit on where I stand working on trying to combine the estate overlay district and the open space farmland, farmland preservation development bylaw. So initially, I tried to combine them, and it got really complicated. And then I thought, I'll just work on the open space bylaw, and there are incentives for increased density. And since we only have 13 estate houses, and I don't know if the Patton Homestead was counted as an estate house, but it is, we only have 13. I don't think we need a separate bylaw for that, but I thought if you have an estate house and you rehabilitate it or, perhaps make it, use it for commercial properties if you can't sell it as a residence, that could be an incentive for some increased density kind of cluster development. The way the open space bylaw was constructed is you went before the planning board with a concept plan, and then you either went forward under the subdivision regulations with the preliminary plan, or you did a cluster development, and it seemed to me, I'll just pick a lane. Just go forward with a plan, and you'll get a special permit, and you can do what you're going to do. Not this two-step kind of approach. It seemed just cumbersome. And it wasn't very appealing because nobody ever used it. So now I have a draft. It's only 19 pages and 20 sections. It might be shortened, but it pretty much tracks the open space and farmland preservation development bylaw, which, I found the source of that in going through some things. I identified where the genesis of it. I found some model bylaws. So I have given it to Emil. He hasn't gotten back to me, but I'd like to talk to
We
Mark.
also have the senior housing cluster bylaw, which
Yeah.
is the same concept,
Same concept.
right? All these are the same concept. In one, you're trying to just preserve open space, period. The other, you're trying to preserve open space, but also keep the grand old house around.
Yeah.
And
The thing of
in
it is,
senior, you're trying
with
to provide.
Cannerbrook, it was just a subdivision. It really wasn't
Right.
clustered.
But they all have the same, mechanism, which
Yeah,
is
save
you get a
the-
density
save and-
bonus for.
Save the open space, yeah.
That's right. For
The
So-
process should be
savings.
the same too, special permit application, like.
So I
simple,
looked at the
simple.
density bonuses under the senior housing bylaw, and,
You can have one bylaw, which is the cluster bylaw, and have it have several different objectives.
yeah,
Save old houses,
yeah,
preserve open space,
yeah.
whatever else, serve special needs of some kind. And you just say, which one of these do you want to use?
Yep.
You don't have to have a separate bylaw, which overlaps. Those bylaws all have a similar, text to them and a similar kind of, well, you get this much density bonus for this much and that.
You mentioned there were 13 estates that fall within the criteria. I wonder if you even step back a minute in the criteria that's set for, like if you slightly adjusted the minimum acreage or square foot or year of the building, or like, if you
You might get a
modified what
few more.
applied,
You might get a few more.
could you get like 50 more
No.
or 2 more, I guess? is-
Two.
You know, like the
Two.
house
You
on
would-
Willowdale that was, or the house on Walnut that was for sale years ago, the $5 million house on the hill that took forever to sell, like that's it's a lot, I don't know, I guess I'm just curious what kind of land, what kind of properties apply. But if there's only like, if you modify it,
Yeah, well,
There's only a couple extras,
I
maybe it's
need
not
to
worth
talk
it.
to Mark, because first off, how much, we're going through these motions, okay? I've spent some time on this, and then the question, the real question is, how many 5-acre parcels exist in Hamilton for development? How many 10-acre parcels exist in
exactly.
Hamilton for development? What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Maybe these bylaws were never used because there just isn't developable land.
yeah.
A lot of the land, I think about Devon Glen. That's all conservation land. I mean, so the beautiful estate house is in one ownership, but then some of the other land is, you'd think would be available for development. It's conservation land or it's wetland. You might get 2 house lots, 2 house lots on it,
Yep.
3, maybe if you were lucky.
No, we're seeing, yeah.
You could cluster it. It would still not amount to a hill of beans. So, a lot of the properties, when you start parsing them, just like Gordon Conwell, 102 acres. What did it end up as being developable after we took out the steep slopes and the wetland and the this and that and the other? And that's the problem with Hamilton.
Yeah.
So, what are we dealing with? That's the first thing. We didn't really do the first thing. We just jumped right in. But, so, for example, I looked at public benefit incentives. So I have additional common open space, senior housing, mix of smaller units. This is right from the senior housing bylaw.
Right.
On or off-site construction of affordable housing, energy efficient units, that's for you. You're gonna regret leaving the
I am
planning
going
board.
to, you're right.
Reuse of an estate house, restoration of the estate house, commercial reuse of the estate house. So these were all incentives. But you want to make sure that the property's big enough to make it worthwhile. 5 acres is not a lot of land in the big scheme of things. I mean, I have 4 acres, and if you come down on my property, you won't see any of it because most of it's way in the back and it's all wet. And if you want to get Lyme disease, you could walk back there. And you would get Lyme disease if you didn't take precautions because of the herds of deer that live back there. So, you just don't, it's not there. But we'll keep working on that. So, our accessory dwelling unit design guidelines. So, Jonathan, you mentioned the City of Boston's design guidelines, which I proceed to try and print out. And after page 36, my printer just spewed out blank pages with a bit of text, and I
Oh,
couldn't.
they really have,
I couldn't make my printer stop printing for love
It's
nor
an
money.
enormous document.
It was not bad, though.
No, it's
I think
well
we
thought
could
well
No,
thought
this is,
through. Yeah.
it's
Crib
kind of
off
interesting.
of it.
Yeah, but it's obviously urban focused, but you can adapt
Yes.
a lot of the
Yes, it
principles.
could- Yes,
The
absolutely.
principles can be
I
adapted
like
to
the
a
way it
suburban.
was set up.
Yeah, no, it's a good model.
It's a good model.
Yeah.
So I think that we should maybe print that out, Mark? Because I sure
Maybe
couldn't.
get your printer going again, maybe.
Why after page 36, and I kept hitting cancel, and I went into, and I hit cancel, and it kept going and going and going. Jesus, Mary, Jesus. Where is a technical consultant when you need them? But anyhow, I like the way it was set up, because it did have what it had before all things fell apart. It had different designs, and it had smaller lots, medium lots, and larger lots. So it really, and they talked about you could put it over your garage, you could put it in your basement, you could put it in your attic, whatever.
And the graphics and the words were fairly accessible. It
Yeah.
wasn't arcane
Yeah.
or difficult to follow.
Yeah. So I thought that was good. So let's go to town center zoning.
Just
And
real quick before, on the master plan, it still is on the select board agenda. It keeps getting bumped because they're very focused on the budget and the override issues right now, but my understanding is it's supposed to be on next week's select board agenda. So I know they're meeting tomorrow night. They had to bump it from Monday because of the storm, but it's not on that agenda, but the following agenda.
And you know, in terms of that implementation committee, I know it would be hard to get volunteers, but you can have an implementation committee made up of town officials.
Yeah, and
And they don't have to meet very regularly, just when something comes up.
someone from finance, I think, would be good, or capital, because a lot of these things require,
Money.
budgetary planning.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, town center zoning. So we have the proposal from UTIL. And I don't know if anybody had any thoughts about that, but
So, yeah, I have a couple. Go ahead.
remember this nice chart that we produced for town meeting? Does UTIL have a copy of this?
I believe so.
Yeah, because that, would be very helpful. So I didn't have a lot of comments on this, but one thing, it says, meeting with Hamilton Planning Board, and it says, prepare for and attend up to 2 interim meetings with the town of Hamilton Planning Board to review progress and gather feedback. So my question, in person or Zoom, but to me, I would like to meet with them when they actually have the guide produced and the handout material for the public.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to meet with them before they have the product. What are we talking about?
Well, that's my question, is do we want them to spend time on trying to produce this is a very short amount of time to produce a product, hand out a document, and it seems like it would be more valuable for us to get some guidance on how to sort of administer the code, how you would go through an application, how you would.
Well, so they say, using an example parcel selected in collaboration with the town, develop a graphic step-by-step guide on how the
That seems
code will be used.
like the most valuable thing in there.
Yes,
Not,
yes.
not handout material for public use or public realm signage design guidelines. So
Reallocate more time to that, perhaps.
reallocate more time to 2.1
Okay.
and less time to 3.1, unless there's something I'm missing here.
Emil was very much concerned about the public realm. I know
Yes,
that's,
but the planning board can do that kind of on their own. We don't need UTIL to spend time on that. We'd be better served to start a draft of the
I
guidelines.
agree, because I don't think that they could actually produce anything that was that worthwhile.
In 8 hours?
Exactly.
That's just unrealistic.
Right.
I think a better use of their time is to really sharpshoot, sort of
2.1.
face-to-face time and some frameworks, and guide us through the process, so
Because
that,
this is the handout for the public.
right.
They can critique this.
Yes, yeah. So we should be producing guidelines, producing documents, producing handout materials. We need their expertise and experience in how to administer this
In
code.
conjunction with that, Mark produced this,
Right.
basically, application form, if you
Right.
will, and they should comment on that.
Yeah, they could comment
Because-
on what we produce, and, maybe we call them back again when we do our guidelines. If we do our
We have to spend the money by June
design
30th.
guidelines and, public realm guidelines.
Yeah,
But for them to start that stuff, that doesn't really feel
you're
like it.
right. They're
And
never
as far as the
gonna-
public realm, the code is pretty silent on the public realm. So it's sort of a little bit of a vacuum. It'd be better for us to fill that vacuum and then we could call them in to guide
Right.
us through it. Whereas the code itself and dealing with things like non-compliance, anomalous sites, seeming conflicts or, grandfathering in the
Yeah.
process, that's where we could really use
I
help.
agree. And, I don't want to talk to them until they can talk to us with these step-by-step code thing. We want to
Yeah,
talk
it would be
to-
helpful for them to come in with a sample framework.
Yeah.
Either a sample framework from another town, or a draft framework for us.
But we don't need to talk to them about what we want. 2.1 is what we want.
Exactly, yeah. Does that make sense to everybody, I think?
Yeah, I mean, you
I mean,
waste
I
a
know
lot
Emil's
of,
on that page, so,
yeah, you waste a lot of time with preliminary stuff. Just jump right in and come in and give us how to apply this code.
yeah, do some case studies.
Case studies, yeah,
Yeah.
not just one,
Yeah, a couple different ones.
yeah.
And take something that's complicated, that has contradictions in it.
Something that's easy.
Yeah, something that's easy and something that's hard.
Something that's hard,
Yep.
yeah.
Mark, does that all make sense?
Yes, so assuming I get UTL to reallocate the time and change the meeting with the planning board to when they have the draft materials ready.
Yes,
I'm okay to have the town manager sign something in detail. I'd just like to get it going pretty soon because
yeah,
June 30th, you have to spend
Yeah,
20
comes
bucks.
up quick.
yeah.
Yep.
We want to
We
get
don't
that
have
started.
to.
Well, you decide to do it.
I think
Could
we
just
should.
be saved.
I think it would be helpful if we, well, first I have to refresh my recollection about what the whole thing was all about. Just being honest, to really read the whole thing again and see what we adopted. Specifics, not general, but really specifics. And then, have them go through some case studies. I think that's important. And I'd like them to comment on what you produced. If the information you have here is such that we can then apply their, if they're gonna guide us through this thing, what do we need in terms of information? Is what Mark produced a good start, or would they add or subtract or whatever? And then,
And there wants to be an order of operations. You want to be starting with the biggest picture first of analysis, not like, the style of a fence or something like that. You just start with, is it conforming, is it non-conforming? Where are the buildings placed, where are they not? Really big picture, and then work your way through a decision tree. And we don't really know what that decision tree looks like. So, we sort of do, but it'd be helpful to have guidance on that.
right,
So
If you think back about, this isn't a great analogy, but it's an example of complexity that I don't think was handled that well, is the review of 133 Essex application. That sometimes started in the middle or at the end and then went to the beginning, and it was all over the map, and it did not follow a logical sequence, and it should have started with 8.1.12. Those are the first steps, and the review process did not follow that. And that's not how you want to do form-based code. Begin at the beginning, big picture, and then work your way down to the details. And that's where the framework would really help us. Because I know they're not analogous, but that's an example where there was no framework for the beginning of that review, and it wasted so much time. So much time.
Yeah,
On
we were
133
looking
Essex.
at trees before we looked at the forest.
Yes. So,
Totally.
sorry to bring up that sore point, but I
it
think there's
ended up well at the end.
there's an opportunity here to create framework that's efficient, helps the applicant understand and prioritize how to look at the information, and helps the board prioritize and apply the information in a methodical way, so it's not jumping around.
Is this a good start?
Yep,
Is this the big picture?
yep, so,
Coming down to the,
yep. So,
I
but
mean-
anyway, that's where I would lean on UTIL.
yeah.
So could we take the 8 hours that have been allotted to 3.1 and just put it on 2.1? And that would give us,
Yeah,
I think it's not for us to
Yeah, they-
take account of hours. We just want to tell them, we just want to tell them what we would like to get out of the effort.
Yeah.
And let them allocate the hours.
Absolutely.
Rather than.
within that budget?
Take a year, yeah.
Yes.
Like, give them the goal of what we're trying to achieve and let them come up with the,
Okay.
because then we're developing the budget.
So on the subject of 133 Essex, Darcy was there, but there was a little celebration of the acquisition of 133 Essex, and we got a nice call out from folks for, the work that we did on.
did you go?
I did, yeah.
Oh, was it
fun.
good?
It was really good.
Very nice. So, and Chris Lapointe was there.
Yes.
And so it
Well, I
was.
guess it was good that what, just the two of you, because if there were 4 of us, we would have had to
Be
noticed it
quorum.
out.
There was no formal presence of it.
I know,
But there
I'm
was just
kidding.
it was a nice presentation of all of the folks who came together and sort of looked at the property, evaluated the property, just a sort of a pulling together of various efforts, and the culmination of that was it bought Greenbelt the time to make the acquisition, and
Well, it gave the
It's a
Rich
good-
family an opportunity to see which way the wind was blowing.
there you go too. So anyway,
I
so
was
it
going
was
to ask if they were present, yeah.
no,
No.
not that I can think of.
They weren't-
But
they
it,
weren't
but it
there.
was
Not
a, but it was a nice call out to to sort of a team effort to have a good outcome.
And there were people from Gloucester and Essex,
Uh-huh.
Hamilton and Wenham. It was really good.
So
I
People
love the
from
guy from,
Manchester?
No, I didn't
Didn't
find
see anybody
anybody
from
from
Manchester?
Manchester.
do you remember
Is
the
Ken Whitaker
fellow
from
from
Manchester?
Essex?
No, I think he's from
Who made the
Wenham.
comment?
Oh.
He was, do you remember the fellow from Essex? He, I'll never forget it because I laughed so hard. He said, "First-time caller, long-time listener,"
Jim and Marjorie.
when he was making comments about the, and I laughed so hard because, he was following the whole thing. Do you ever listen to Jim and Marjorie on GBH? In the car?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they always have people calling in saying, "First-time caller, long-time listener," and that's what this guy from Essex did.
Yeah.
Cracked up.
He's been paying attention.
They were paying attention. A lot of people were paying attention. So anyhow, I think we have,
So if I just sort of turn that around and sort of re-summarize it for you, Teal, it's sort of
big picture.
framework and order of operations,
Yeah.
is a big deal. And
What do we
then-
do first?
Yeah.
You know,
And what do we prioritize first?
yeah.
And then what do we do when there's confusion or conflict or, non-conformance, grandfathering, things like that, so.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any new business that we should, anything on our plate? Matt, do you have your signatures?
I'm getting them, yeah. Just about done.
Yeah, better.
Do you have your
I have
papers?
them.
20
I have them with me.
seconds.
I have them. I wasn't sure if that was allowed.
Why not?
You were?
Yeah, Marnie, if you
No
want
one's
to
supposed to
Going
first.
There you go.
You're going to leave the planning board?
No, I'm going to fulfill my obligations.
Oh, you can do
It's
both.
legal, you can do both.
Oh,
No one pulled any,
outside. Do you have your papers, Matt?
I do.
Darcy,
we
what are
should-
you on, up for?
I am going to the
Let's,
planning board.
let's,
I mean,
um,
select board.
Let's close
Okay.
our meeting
my
unless there's
secretary.
Yeah.
anything
Yep.
real business.
Second go around?
Yep.
Yep. So,
Who's leaving the select?
Bill
Motion.
Wilson.
Bill Wilson, okay.
Yep.
so
Do we want
do you want to entertain a
we do.
motion?
I make a motion that we adjourn for the evening.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.